I was invited to join this Facebook group that I thought was pretty cool, and one of the questions that was posed in it was about where are the black leaders of today? And it was an interesting question because, you know, if you look back during the civil rights era, you know, you have the big six, including Martin Luther King Jr. Of course, you have Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party that was a little bit later, going into the 70s. And folks like Shirley Chisholm and Angela Davis and then you take a look at also the athletes that were active, or the artists like active in politically or in civil rights, like a Jim Brown or Muhammad Ali or even a Marvin Gaye. And then that question was posed into this group, and it made me think about it. And you know, when it comes to black leaders and who's out there and who's going to take up the mantle during this obviously crucial period in our history with the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, gaining steam and popularity and being a focal point, you know, that's a good question. However, I really don't think that the question being posed at who can be really pinpointed at this point in time, for the simple fact that maybe we haven't discovered them yet. Maybe they just these new black leaders. Maybe it's because if you look at the civil rights movement, I mean, nobody knew who Rosa Parks was. Nobody knew who Martin Luther King was when it first started and gained steam. I mean, nobody knew. And John Lewis, I mean, if you think about him, he was in his early 20s. A student. Helped started SNCC. And you know, when it comes to today's athletes or in today's, you know, performers or artists and such, I mean, you got to look at LeBron James, very vocal, doing great things. Killer Mike, very vocal, doing great things. And just because they don't seem like they're the prototypical protester and or activist doesn't mean that they're not active, or from my standpoint. Now, I'm speaking from a historical perspective. I'm speaking as a white man that, you know, when you look at the civil rights leaders at that time and going from the civil rights movement to the Black Panther Party, which I don't want to say that was different. It was just, it was still civil rights and still looking for freedoms and still looking for equity in the country. But it's just that we may not know who these folks are that are going to step up. They may be unknown. And we may not know who this will be. Or if it'll just be a collective consciousness. You know, we can't really pigeonhole the Black Lives Matter movement into the same thing as the civil rights movement. Is it about civil rights? Yeah. Is it about equity? Yeah. But it's a different time and age, and it's different people that are being involved. There's more folks of different racial makeup that is putting this forth, the Black Lives Matter movement, more so than was in the 50s and 60s during the Civil Rights Act, or Civil Rights Movement, or the 70s with the Black Panther Party movement. And I just don't think that right now we can really say, oh, well, we just won't have a leader because we don't have people that are going to step up in that regard. And I don't think that that's completely true. I mean, if you pay attention to, like I mentioned, some of the names and what they're doing and what they're saying, they may seem like, well, they're an athlete, or they're a singer, or so on and so forth, or they're just an author. I would have to disagree. It doesn't matter. They're humans just as much as anybody else. They may make millions upon millions of dollars, but that gives them, like Colin Kaepernick, it gives them a platform to be able to have that voice, and they're using that voice that they have, that economic power that they've earned and been given, to bring attention to situations like this. And we also have to look at, this generation of teens going into their early 20s now that's labeled Generation Z. They are incredibly gifted when it comes to what they want and what they want to see and hear and see change. I mean, if you look at what the Parkland kids did after their moment, I don't mean to downplay that, after the situation that they lived through. But, and sitting as a white man that has observed history in different facets, I think that this is our moment, our moment in time to really situate where leadership really will lie. And it may not be where you think it's going to come from. It came out of left field in the civil rights movement. What makes you think it won't come out of left field this time? And when I say left field, obviously, there were lawyers and preachers such as Martin Luther King, in that regard. But a lot of the time, folks, they hadn't made a name for themselves until the civil rights era, and on what they did with it. So I think that's still going to be the case. And, and I'm in the generation that's right in between when the civil rights era hit its apex, where, after the Civil Rights Act, and then after Martin Luther King passed away, I shouldn't say passed away, after he was murdered, and then until now, it's just interesting to me what this path lies, and who's actually all involved, and who may be stepping up may not be what you expected. And that's the observation that I've made. Whether you agree, whether you disagree, I just think that we can't feel that we are going to have this epic moment where somebody is going to rise up and be that leader, that mantle, just right away. There's never going to be another Martin Luther King. There's never going to be another Malcolm X. But there could be another or a new someone. We have a tendency to just really put some folks on a pedestal and feel like we're not going to reach that. Well, before them, you had the Marcus Garveys and such like that, but they raised it to another level, you know, and I think that that's going to be the case here. We don't know who this person is, and it could be the new this person. I mean, LeBron is not the next Jordan. He is the first LeBron. Point blank. And that's how I saw it, and that's how I see it. Like I said, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And what do I know? I'm just the white man making an observation about this situation, this time in history. And I think we're going to get to see something incredible. And that's no longer left unsaid.